Hello, I'm Azai. Welcome back to the Fruit of Grisaia. Last I played this was a week ago. I actually have not been playing this on a regular day-to-day basis. So, I would like to, but I've been very tired. I kind of have a routine going for me now with my new cardio session, with me going to the gym. And also, now I do DDR weekly, which is Dance Dance Revolution, if you guys don't know what that is. But yeah, with all that combined with work, and sometimes I have to do some family stuff, there's been very rarely that I can do anything during the weekdays. Or even if there is something that I can do, like a free time during the weekdays, what I would do is actually play some Art Anelico too. Since right now I am on phase 3 and that game is about 80 hours long. Alright. Let me try to remember where we left off during the last episode. I think we finished off going back from the mountain, Yamanashi, I believe. It was a pretty long scene going to Yamanashi, talking with Makina, and after that we were going back the next day. I'm still not sure if the sex scene is already happening or like we skipped it. But someone in the comments seemed to say that this version skips a lot of the sexual stuff. Let me just be honest, okay? In a story-focused like game like this, I personally think that some of the sex scenes are just way too blatant, way too weird, and I understand some people have their kinks. The reason why visual novels are popular in the first place is because there'd be some sexual fantasies about what they can do with specific girls. That's why there's lots of body types, there's lots of archetypes about what personalities they are. I get it. But is it not weird for you guys that, you know, Yuji suddenly have sex with Makina? Like, the game even implies that, you know, Amane always said that this is weird if you suddenly have sex with Makina. But to each their own, like I said, if you prefer that, that's okay. But for me personally, I don't think that getting rid of the sexual stuff, at least in this game, is that bad. So I just wanted to address that because the guy really said that I was missing out a lot in the context about the sexual stuff. And really, like, you guys be the judge, not me. Like, my stance on this is that I am not really missing out on a lot, but what about you guys? I'm actually pretty surprised that they even have that, you know, that, what was it? The kissing scene with Makina. That was pretty blatant for me. That was like, you know, sure, they didn't show any CGs, but it was clearly very sexual, right? But alright, enough about my banter. Let us actually progress through the story, shall we? The next day, just as scheduled, Maki and I returned to the Mihama Academy dorm a little before noon. But yeah, also I think last time I I talked very little about what I was while we were at the cabin at Yamanashi. One, it was because I wanted the scene to actually end, and two, because there wasn't really much for me to say, especially during the trip to Yamanashi when Yuji was talking about the motorcycle. I'm like, holy shit, this is... Like, I'm into bikes, but normal bikes, like I said previously. I'm not into motorcycles, I'm not into cars, I'm not into GT sports or whatever you call that motorcycle racing tournament. F1, I'm not into that. I am a very weird type of male. I'm not into the whole thing that are supposed to say masculinity. Although the total length of our trip was barely more than a day, for Makina, it seems to have qualified as a genuine adventure. Oh, give me a sec, actually. Before I continue, I think my food is actually downstairs. 1 second, and I will be right back with the power of editing. And I'm back. Sorry about that. I've been bantering and not really progressing the story, and I have to pause the recording because my food came. But yeah, got my beef sandwich. That is going to be my late night snack before I go to bed for the next 2 days or so. Okay, now we can actually continue for real. From the moment she woke up this morning, the girl was even more hyper than usual. She insisted that just heading back wouldn't be no fun. So after I deposited her in the tandem seat, we ate a quick breakfast of dried fish in a diner open early for the local fishermen, then drove around on a lightning tour of the major local sightseeing points. We eventually winded our way leisurely back while taking frequent breaks. Is the game loud? Let me lower it a tiny bit. There we go. I don't understand what you're supposed to be ashamed about, and it's not like we went to Guam or something, you know?
Kazami-san, Maki-chan, okaeri nasai.
Yeah, we're home.
どうでしたか？お墓参りの方は。
楽しかったのよさ。帰りに立ち寄った八方図山から見た雄大な景色はまさに絶景だったのよ。
That's in Saipan. You climb Mount Fuji, and we only made it as far as the 5th station.
お土産はマカダミアナッツのチョコ。みんなで食べるといいのよさ。
Now it's Hawaii? Incidentally, the things you're waving around with a giant grin on your face are rice cakes with black honey.
結局どちらまで行かれたのでしょう？南国？
よーし、南国マンに変身だ。変身！
Don't start morphing into abstract geopolitical constructs.
そう、帰ってきたのね。
ああ、ユミちゃん。恥ずかしながら帰ってまいりました。
そのネタはさっき聞いたわ。
ソロモンよ。
そういうネタはもういいから。
Bombarded by Machina's raw energy, elevated beyond baseline levels into something perilously close to a frenzy, Sakaki sighs heavily, her expression vaguely gloomy. I can practically see the words, "the return of the troublemaker," rising up her throat, only to be forced back down through an effort of will.
昨日は平和な一日だったわね。
遠くを見つめるようにしみじみとそういうこと言うなよ。
うるさいわね。頭痛いんだから大きな声出さないでよ。
チルチル二日酔い？
違うわよ。なんでか知らないけど頭がズキズキするのよね。昨日の夜の記憶もなんだか曖昧だし。勉強のしすぎではありませんか？頭は大切にしてくださいね。大事に使えば一生使えますから。何か？
No, just wondering where to begin jabbing at that. I mean, the idea of Michiru's studying is enough to make you die laughing. And if your head ever stops functioning, your life's over. So the second part of the sentence is a meaningless truism. But first and foremost, you're the one who judged that deranged blonde to be a threat and subdued her through blunt force.
風見さんがどうしても突っ込みたいのであれば潔く突っ込まれますが、できれば突っ込まないでください。
I see. At times, it's hard being a man.
何の話よ。
突っ込みたがる男と突っ込まれるのを嫌がる女。ままならねえもんだな。
よくわかんないけど、とにかく静かにしなさいよ。あんた、なんか妙にテンション高くない？
Well, it seems I put the girl to bed too early last night. She woke up at 4:30 in the morning today. Didn't seem like she was going back to bed anytime soon, so I ended up leaving a little earlier than planned. We improvised a half-assed little sightseeing tour on the way back.
あんまり寝てないから無駄にはい。
それに追加して旅行のバカンス気分の余韻がまだ抜けていないようね。
You'd think that people that had less sleep would actually be low in energy, but I guess not Machina.
楽しかったということだけは覚えていて、何を見てきたのかはまるで覚えていない。遠足から帰った小学生ってきっとこんな感じなのね。
失敬だなお前。ちゃんと山にも行って湖にも行ってきたっつうの。
じゃあ何山に登って何湖を見てきたか覚えている？
The hell? Once again, Makina's slippers squeak with unnaturally convenient timing.
今なんて言った？聞き返すその勇気敬服しますみちる様。
Close, but no. They're both the tallest mountains in their countries, but that one's in the Philippines. Also, I don't remember taking you all the way to South America. By the way, that lake really exists, so there's no need for the slipper squeaking.
全然惜しくないじゃないのよ。というか、イリスさんあなたわざと言い間違えていない？
そぎゃんこつは中よ。
熊本？
Well, I don't know. Maybe this is a bit of a rebound.
何それ？
Even Makita wouldn't run around shrieking on a visit to a grave. Maybe this is just the recoil from all that time she spent actually behaving herself. Then again, I did see a new side of her, so maybe the whole hyperact is an attempt at hiding her embarrassment.
そういうこと言うのよくないよ。キャラがブレるじゃんかさ。
In any case, I'm glad we got back in one piece.
なんだかお疲れのご様子ですね。
Yeah, I won't deny I'm a little worn out. Amane's Bobataru is fine for tooling around the neighborhood, but it's just not that suited for long-distance travel. I couldn't quite stomach taking that thing onto the expressway, so we came all the way back on local roads. That probably contributed to the fatigue as well.
お風呂にでも入られて少しお休みになられてはどうでしょう。
いいね。私もお風呂入って寝る。
Hold on, don't you have your part-time job this afternoon?
ああ、2時からなのよさ。だからさっちん、1時に起こして。
わかった。1時だね。
To be honest, I wasn't able to get much rest at all last night. I've had a surprising string of days recently where I've managed to get a solid 8 hours of sleep, so I'd almost start to forget. But I've never been a deep sleeper, and typically jerk awake several times a night. Yesterday was a particularly awful example. It's not like I'm physically exhausted, but I can definitely feel something like mental weariness weighing down on me. So after reporting our safe return to Amane and JB, I apply my eye drops and lie down. Practically, the moment my eyes close, some tense cord inside me snaps at last, and I tumble down into unconsciousness. When I heard about the bombing, the sky outside had already grown pink, and the cries of cicadas were beginning to cool down the scorched earth. With a few hours of deep and dreamless sleep behind me, I walk out into the lobby, trying to shake off the slight lingering heaviness in the core of my head. Encounter Sakaki there, glued to the television, and receive the unexpected news that a bombing has taken place in the vicinity of Mishima Cape Station. According to the news program she's watching, an automobile parked by the road in the shopping district abruptly exploded around 6 this evening. But that's not what I need to know right now. Anne, is Makina alright?
ええ、現場のすぐ近くにいたみたいだけれど、無事だったみたい。でも
However,
少し様子がおかしかったわ。多分あまり見たくないものを見てしまって、少しショックを受けたようね。
I see. And where is she now?
小峰さんが付き添ってスオーさんの部屋で横になっているわ。今はそっとしておいてあげて。
Alright. The word bombing means it wasn't an explosion caused by someone carelessly overturning a fuel tanker, or some other accident of that sort. It looks like the vehicle that exploded was a standard-sized passenger automobile, but from the low-resolution images on the television news program, it's not possible to identify the model or brand. However, Sakaki's clicking away at her notebook PC as we're watching the show, and eventually finds a better quality photograph taken at the scene on the internet. Through that, we were able to establish it was a German luxury car. The vehicle had completely flipped over from the force of the explosives, but as a rule, German automobiles are built sturdy. The body itself may be damaged beyond the point of repair, but the cabin wasn't crushed or deformed. At a glance, I'm willing to bet they used Semtex, and the explosion clearly occurred underneath the car. Since the interior of the car itself wasn't blown apart, it seems likely that they used they use a shaped charge deliberately set to flip the entire thing over. That would seem to suggest they didn't know ahead of time which seat their target would be using. Given such extensive damage to the entire vehicle, even if the cabin remained intact, there's no guarantee anyone would get out of the ensuing fire alive.
この事件はイリスさんに関係があるという話はしたわね。
Yeah.
それは単純にイリスさんが偶然事件に遭遇したという話ではなくて、イリスさん本人、あるいは彼女の実家であるイリス家に大きく関与しているということなのよ。
What do you mean?
爆破された車はイリスさんの家の車なのよ。乗車していたのは運転席に専属の運転手が一人、そして後部座席にはイリス家の人間が乗っていた。
Who was it?
イリス・サリナ、イリス・マキナの妹よ。
Her younger sister? Makina's sister was... But why was she even...
ほら、三島崎の駅の南側に今新しいファッションビルが建設中でしょ？
Yeah. That one that was supposed to open before summer vacation, but ended up getting delayed? I remember Amane mentioning something about this. For what she told me, the place was going to be something like a mall focusing on high fashion. Numerous brands had signed on as tenants, along with restaurants and a movie theater. In particular, there were some foreign boutiques that would be launching their first stores in Japan there, so its upcoming opening was apparently generating some real buzz.
その工事の遅れ自体にもいろいろな裏があるようなのだけれど、今は関係ないと考えては問題ないわ。イリスさんの妹さんはオープン前のとあるブランドショップに買い物に来ていて、その帰りに事件に遭遇したらしいわ。
Why do you know so much about this?
知っている人間は何でも知っているものよ。あなた、蛇の道は蛇って知っている？
Well, I know what the phrase means.
そうじゃなくて、そういう名前の簡易性の情報サイトがあるのよ。今私が話した情報も、さっきの事件現場の詳細な画像も、そこからダウンロードしたものよ。
I see. JB's registered on a similar site, actually. It's impossible to join without the recommendation of an existing member. A new account is in the tens of millions of yen, and even the monthly fee is in the millions. I remember her complaining about the ridiculous charges. But for some reason, the stream of new applicants never seems to dry up. Come to think of it, it's a little disturbing that this girl already has a membership to a site like that at her age.
それなりに信頼のおけるサイトとはいえ、得られる情報には限度があるし、私のポケットマネーで得られる情報なんてたかが知れているけれど、その他の案件と照らし合わせて考えれば、イリスさんの実家で何かがあったと見るべきでしょうね。
What's that something supposed to be?
それが分かっているようなら、私だってこんな回りくどい言い方はしないわよ。これはあくまでも私の勝手な予測だけれど、イリスさんが実家を追われる原因にもなった誘拐事件、あの事件の引き金にもなった原子力発電所絡みの案件がまだ水面下で動いているのかもしれないわね。
Hold on, Sakaki. You knew about Makina's kidnapping? I was gonna ask that actually. I don't think anyone else should know about this. At least not their classmates.
概要ぐらいはね。私の実家とも無関係ではないし、
Oh.
興味本位で調べたわけではないということは理解しておいてほしいわね。
But I hadn't heard it was connected to a nuclear power plant. Makina's father was an accountant at the Ministry of Defense, wasn't he? How does that tie together?
あなた、その情報どこから？
A superior at my part-time job.
あなたのアルバイト先というのも私にはある程度予想はついているのだけれど、正確なところは聞かない方がいいのよね。
That'd be appreciated. Also, I'm nothing but a part-timer. Try to keep that in mind.
そうね。今問題にするべきはイリスさんが何を見てどう関与したか、そこに尽きるでしょうね。
There's a sickening swell of uneasiness rising in my chest. What the hell is this? What's going on?
マキちゃん、やっと眠ってくれました。
Is it alright to leave her alone?
はい、今は静かに眠っていますし、みちる様が付き添っていますから大丈夫です。
一体何があったというの？彼女から何か聞けた？
はい、詳しい話を聞くことができました。私はマキちゃんのことまだ何も知らなかったんだってそう思い知らされました。
Why was Makina on the scene of the bombing in the first place?
現場にいたというわけではなくて、近所の喫茶店とホテルにパンの配達に行っている途中だったようです。
Makina was cheerfully humming her way down the street in front of the station, bags of fresh bread carefully cradled in her arms, when she noticed a shrill, irritable-sounding voice a little ways ahead of her. When she casually glanced up to find its source, Makina discovered that the voice belonged to a girl about her own age. The girl was walking down the sidewalk in the opposite direction, a man in a black suit following closely behind it like an escort. Makina recognized that girl at once. It was her little sister. When the psychological trauma of Makina's kidnapping had left her unable to handle even the demands of everyday life, this girl had taken her place as the future leader of their clan. Although Makina thought of her as a sister, their fathers were different. She was the product of a lengthy tryst between Makina's mother and a man from the branch family. Unlike Makina, who took after her father with a round chubby face, her sister's features had always been more refined, strongly resembling their mother. As a child, Makina had been envious of her appearance. But today, that shapely face was contorted in irritation, an expression that spoke of stress and deep-rooted frustration.
私が来ることは事前に知らせてあったし、希望する商品も伝えてあったでしょうに。どうしてちゃんとサイズを揃えておかないの？商売をする気がないのかしら。それとも私をバカにしているの？
申し訳ございません。事前通達に不備がございました。後日屋敷の方へ届けさせますので、どうかご容赦をいただきたく。
As the voices drew closer, Makina reflexively hid herself in the shadows. It was an old habit. If Makina hadn't taken ill, her sister never would have been placed in her current position. She would probably be living normally in a branch family even now. At first glance, this pampered, ultra-privileged lifestyle might seem preferable to that. However, Makina had learned from Kazami Yuji that a life totally free of inconvenience only hinders your growth as an individual. And today, she couldn't see the girl in front of her as anything but an unfortunate, robbed of dreams, hopes, and freedom in exchange for empty luxury. She felt a twinge of something very much like pity. Makina had been the same way once. It was only after her arrival at Bahama that she came to understand the virtues of a normal existence. Biting her lower lip, she whispered a sympathetic apology inside her mind. "I'm sorry, Sachin." Why Sachi? Is that what you call Serena, I guess? Makina first learned she had a little sister when she was 5 years old. As the eldest daughter of the family's head, she had been raised as an only child. But when she learned that her mother had born a child to the branch family's second son only a year after her own birth, she was genuinely happy. At the time, Makina didn't really understand the implications of her mother giving birth to the child of a man other than her husband, and the reasons why that child couldn't enter the main family, or even meet her older sister, were equally mystifying. In the first place, Makina wouldn't even have learned of her sister's existence if not for a butler's careless slip of the tongue. But once she did know, Makina developed a burning curiosity toward the girl she'd never met. Every once in a while, she would pay her sister stealthy visits, observing her life from afar. Every time she spied on that little girl, living a normal life as a member of the branch family, the knowledge that she had a sibling grew more real to her. Many times, Makina would come to the verge of calling out to her, only to hold back at the last moment. Looking at her sister clinging affectionately to her stepmother's waist, innocently begging her mommy for some treat, Makina knew the sudden arrival of a big sister could very well shatter the girl's peaceful family. She could never bring herself to take that risk. But Makina didn't stop taking the time to go see her sister. Eventually, she invented a nickname for the girl she'd never spoken to, developing a one-sided make-believe relationship. Even the day she was kidnapped, just before going to her language class at cram school, she'd been secretly watching her little sister from inside her chafurd? Is that how you say that? chauffeured? I don't know. Chauffeured? I think chauffeured, right? Maybe. Car. And that was the last time Makina had seen her sister. Only hours later, she was kidnapped. Her father was killed before her eyes, and she was consigned to a life in the hospital that would last many years. Makina knew the girl was her little sister, but the girl didn't know her. There was no real reason she had to hide. After a moment's hesitation, she emerged from her hiding place, resettling the bread in her arms, and just as she'd done in the old days when in a slightly playful mood, she carefully forced a nonchalant expression onto her face, then began to walk toward her sister. The man in the business suit behind the girl was burdened with countless bags, emblazoned with the names of expensive clothing stores. No doubt the result of an almost really indiscriminate shopping spree on Sarina's part. The trip was probably less about buying clothes than it was venting built-up stress from the heavy responsibilities and expectations placed on the family's future leader. Makina remembered doing something very similar herself, even as a child. I'm kinda surprised this part is not voiced by Makina. Been a while, huh? As they walked past each other on the sidewalk, Makina offered her sister a silent greeting inside her mind. Okay. Maybe it's because it's, a monologue inside of her brain. They had passed each other by like this numerous times before, although only Makina knew it. Every time, it felt as though the words, "I'm your big sister," would slip out of her mouth. But they could never make it past the tip of her tongue, and today was no different. It just wasn't a possibility. Her sister's current position was founded on her absence. For another thing, Sarina had almost certainly been told she was dead. Even if it was permitted, Makina wouldn't know how to begin speaking to her, let alone what they could talk about. Makina glanced over her shoulder, catching a glimpse of her sister being helped into a sleek black car stopped by the side of the road. It was reassuring to see her sister was being taken care of, but that thought reminded Makina that she herself no longer had a place in the house she was born into. She couldn't help feeling a slight prick of sadness. But today, she had a heart-won family of her own. The students at Mahama. They'd given her things her real family never could. Feeling her heart grow lighter, Makina clutched the warm bread against her chest and drew a deep breath, drinking up the comforting scent of weed. A small smile spread across her face. Once this delivery was over, the day's work would be done. She wanted to run home and see everyone, to give Amane a call in Tokyo. Buoyed? Is that how we say that? Buoyed? By those thoughts, she took a step forward, and in that instant, Makina felt a flash of heat against the back of her body, almost like a burst of powerful sunlight. Before she could even flinch, a thunderous roar rattled her eardrums so harshly it caused her physical pain. A fraction of a second later, fine particles of something like sand swept violently past her, flying down the asphalt like waves. And as the burning wind crawled over her, she saw the light, downy hair on her forearms smoldering. Jeez, that wind sound actually hurts my ears. With a strangled half scream, Makina squeezed her eyes shut just before the massive wave of heat knocked her down onto the sidewalk. For a moment, she couldn't process what had just happened. Crumpled on the hard concrete, listening to the grit gliding across the asphalt, the answers came to her slowly and haltingly, as if filtered through the translation of a clumsy interpreter. An explosion? It took a full 2 seconds for those words to float to the surface of Makina's mind. She picked herself onto her knees, disbelieving, telling herself it couldn't be. But then, she turned around. She came face to face with harsh, undeniable reality. Her dumbfounded gaze found the luxury black sedan her sister had stepped into moments before. It was lying upside down, all but consumed in bright red flames. Huh? No, this can't be real. This time, her mind couldn't catch up at all. She didn't want it to. She didn't want to accept the reality before her eyes. Just a moment ago, she'd seen her sister from the side, a slightly irritated expression on her face, so close she could have reached out and touched her. Many thoughts were circling frantically around inside her head, as her mind tried desperately to make something like sense out of the situation. But it was all fragments, nonsense, noise. There were no answers she could accept. Somebody was yelling into her ear. She could understand that it was the voice of someone who was worried about her, still sitting there glued to the ground, but she couldn't muster the focus to decipher their words, much less respond to them. Makina didn't move an inch from the spot, until at last, the voice said, "We need to get out of here," and firm hands pulled her to her feet.
マキちゃんを寮まで連れ帰ってくれたのは八百屋のご主人でした。最初は病院に連れて行こうとしたらしいのですが、マキちゃんが病院はどうしても嫌だっていうものだからここに連れてきたそうです。
She's not physically injured, right?
はい、右腕に赤くなる程度の軽いやけどを負っていますが、冷やせばきれいに治ります。ですが、
The psychological damage is going to be more severe.
そのようです。こんな時、私のような女はただただ無力を痛感するわ。
Sakaki's words express my current feelings to the letter. I don't know what to do. I don't know how I'm supposed to talk to her. I don't even know what sort of expression I should have on my face when I go to see her. Approach this the wrong way, and I might well end up making things even worse. Thoughts like these rob us of the ability to even try. But I suppose there is one thing only I can do, small as it may be.
キリスマキナが事件に巻き込まれたそうね。
You're on top of things as always. Where'd you hear about that?
あなた、蛇の道は蛇って知っている？
Yeah, I am. It's a membership-based information exchange where your sort of people gather, right? Something wrong?
なんで知ってるのよ？誰に聞いたの？相変わらず油断のならない子ね。
Anyway, how much information did you manage to gather over there?
どれくらいと言っても、新聞やニュースと大して変わらないわ。市ヶ谷としても、まだ警戒とも言えない様子見のレベルだしね。
Yet, does that mean there's possibility of initiating active observation in the future?
それはあなたの知る必要のないことです。
Julia,
そんな声を出してもダメ。
can I come to your place tonight?
ダメ。
I just wanted to have some of your home cooking for the first time in a while. Still no good?
そんなこと言ったって、ダメなものはダメなんだからね。
When you refuse me that stubbornly, it's as good as admitting there's a high chance the problem's going to get worse. Does this have anything to do with you not picking up your phone lately? The news shows seem to be pushing a theory that this was an act of terrorism motivated by the construction of a nuclear power plant. What's the real story?
答えられないわ。
I see. Sorry, I'm not looking to harass you here, but can you answer 2 more questions? Whatever information you can give me is fine.
言ってみなさい。聞くだけは聞いてあげる。
How is Makina's younger sister doing?
ニュースで流れている通りよ。命は取り留めたものの、予断を許さない状況が続いているわ。
Will she make it?
なんとも言えないわね。皮膚や臓器の移植が必要なレベルだとの情報が入っているし、近いうちに海外に移送して提供者を待つという噂もあるわね。
I see.
質問はそれだけ？
No. There's one other. On an unrelated topic, this is the one thing I really want to know.
でしょうね。いいわ。言ってみなさい。
If Makina's sister ends up losing her current position due to her injuries, is there a possibility Makina will be expected to resume that role?
その回答は拒否するわ。
Let me rephrase it then. Is there a possibility Makina is going to be in danger going forward?
あなた、どこまで嗅ぎつけているの？
Essentially nothing. My nose is just twitching, that's all. It was basically a leading question.
そうね。このままあなたに憶測だけでおかしな行動を取られても迷惑だし、正直なところを話しておくけど、イリスマキナに危険が及ぶ可能性は決して低くはないわね。私の見立てでは 70% の確率で何らかの接触があるでしょうね。だけどその件に関しては近いうちにあなたに声がかかる可能性が高いわ。だから今は余計なことをしないでちょうだい。通常通り命令に備えて待機していなさい。
In other words, no independent use of force outside the range of self-defense.
その通り。犬は犬らしく、主人が紐を引くまで小屋でおとなしくしていなさい。怪しい人が来たら、ふてくされてないで、ちゃんと吠えるのよ。
Can I really trust you on this?
飼い主を疑うな。それがいい犬の第一条件よ。あの朝子でさえ、命令無視なんて数えるほどしかしなかったんだから。
Oh. Alright, try counting them.
1回、2回、3回、4、5、6、7。
You're running out of fingers fast.
うるさいな。あの女の真似をしたってろくなことにならないわよ。いいから命令があるまでおとなしくしてるの。いい？わかった？
Yes, mommy.
あんたみたいな可愛くない子、産んだ覚えはないわよ。話はそれだけ？もう切るわよ。
Yeah, thanks. I'll be in touch. Well then, what to do? It's clear that things are going to get troublesome in a number of ways. But as always, I'm in the dark on the specific details. If JB is telling me to do nothing, that's probably the optimal choice at the moment. Even so, that doesn't make it any easier to accept. Get moving before you start thinking too much was a favorite saying of my master's. But JB's fond of acting on the basis of incomplete information is like asking for disaster. For now, it might be wisest just to stay at Makina's side as much as possible, while preparing myself for the possibility of an emergency. There's no need to overthink this. I know what I want to protect. I can see it clearly now. Ideally, I'd love to extinguish the source of this fire before the sparks spread in our direction. But if that's not a possibility, I just need to be ready for when things do get ugly. After all, you won't find many guard dogs with nastier fangs than mine. I've been sharpening these teeth a very long time for this exact purpose. Teeth made to catch prey by the tail, drag them close, and rip out the windpipe in one bite. Although hearing of her sister's survival calmed Makina down significantly, the events of yesterday are still painfully fresh in her mind. She shows us a brave attempt at a smile, but can't hide the wariness beneath it. When the girl declares herself uninterested in breakfast, I enlist Sachi's assistance. And together, we prepare a unique but nutritious mackerel pumpkin soup from Amane's recipe notebook. Makina refuses the meal with an almost frightened expression on her face, so I proceed to pin her arms behind her back as our reliable maid emotionally crams spoonfuls of food into her mouth. Through this admirable display of teamwork, we successfully force-feed the girl the breakfast her body needs. I know it might be a little hard to eat right now, but your injuries won't heal if you don't get adequate nutrients.
大げさなのよさ。こんなのちょっと日焼けしたようなもんなのよ。
You were lucky this time, yes. Just be grateful that explosion didn't give you an afro. It might sound like a joke, but the hot pulse of air from an explosion burns your hair starting from the tip, sometimes curling it pretty damn dramatically. As a general rule, it's a good idea to brush a hand over your head when a bomb blast goes by. Often as not, cinders that used to be part of your hair will fall off like sesame seeds from a bun. Okay, I guess I don't know if that's true or not, but duly noted. Alright, this is a good opportunity. Why don't I teach you the anti-explosive self-defense procedure?
何それ。言葉の響きだけでもちょっとかっこいい感じなのよさ。
Listen up, Makina. Ever heard some guy in a suit mutter, "It's getting dangerous these days," while looking over their morning paper? Well, that's not just the vapid catchphrase of self-satisfied, middle-aged men who think they've figured out how the world works. As you were reminded yesterday, there truly are countless dangers lurking all around us. When such threats arrive, they arrive suddenly, and all too often, we are completely unprepared to defend ourselves. Indeed, such complacent carelessness has become an unfortunate element of our national character. This is the very reason Japan has earned the disgraceful title of pacifist patsies among the major powers.
おお、なんかまた面倒なこと言い始めたって思ってるけど、お首にも出さずに真摯に受け止めているふりをしておくよ。
Look, kid, even if you're thinking that sort of thing, it's better not to actually say it.
ごめんよ。そんで大爆はどうなった？
Okay, let's try this again. I'll now initiate you in the basics of personal defense against explosions. Listen carefully. The fundamental principle is low to the ground. When an explosion's coming, get down first and think later.
爆発の危険を察知したらまず伏せろ。
Indeed, go prone and get yourself as flat to the ground as you possibly can. With the exception of some specially designed charges, explosions naturally tend to direct their power upward. If there's a foxhole nearby, claim it. Doesn't matter if it's full to the brim with a mixture of muddy water and excrement. Doesn't matter if your body's pathetic corpse is lying inside. Jump in without a moment's hesitation. Or your buddies.
迷わずタコ壺に飛び込め。
After this, assume the anti-explosive position. There's a small flap of cartilage in front of your earhole called the tragus. Strongly press down on these with your thumbs to protect your eardrums. Next, open your mouth wide. This reduces the burden on your eardrums and keeps your lungs from popping like balloons under the pressure of the shockwave.
耳を塞いで口を大きく開け。爆発から鼓膜を守る。
You've experienced for yourself just how powerful that shockwave is, so I'm sure you can understand. But don't underestimate that pressure. When the explosion occurs indoors, it's even more powerful. If you're close to the blast, it's like being squeezed in the hand of a giant. The pain is intense. Sometimes the pressure can push your eyes clean out of their sockets. While pressing the tragus on both ears with your thumbs, use the remaining fingers to cover your eyelids. Keep your eyeballs where they belong, and defend them against the flash of the explosion.
両手の指でまぶたを押さえ、爆発と閃光から眼球を守ります。
Good. Alright then, next up. We're beginning image training based on a hypothetical scenario. Situation as follows. Recon mission in the subtropical jungle. The time dawn. Your enemies are powerful local guerrillas. They're well equipped and have excellent morale. Enter the scenario.
状況に入ります。
Enemy raid! At my abrupt snarl, Machina throws herself flat to the ground. The enemy have ambushed you. Your position is pinned down by a machine gun fire. Don't raise your head an inch. Keep that chin nuzzling the ground and crawl along the ground to the trench visible ahead. Just as instructed, Machina creeps along the ground, or along the floor on her knees and elbows, clutching an imaginary rifle. A moment later, she slipped her body into the space between the bed and the table.
くぼちり確保。
As Machina screams this report, she repositions an imaginary iron helmet on her head in order to regain a clearer field of vision. Not half bad. She seems to be pretty deeply into the scenario. Incoming from enemy position, M69. Assume the explosive defense position.
大爆防御。
Machina promptly plugs up both her ears, opens her mouth wide, and strongly presses down her eyelids. Lowering her body as close to the ground as she can, she melds her body with the trench, tensing in preparation for the blast. Freaking Yuji. Kaboom! You damn fool! Your rear end's sticking up into the air. Sharpwill just robbed you of your left buttock. Get it down! Get that ass down! I vigorously trampled down on Machina's rear end to emphasize the point.
ケツを下げます。
Basic grenade technique is to throw at 2-second intervals. The next one's coming. Assume the explosive defense position.
大爆防御。
Okay, kaboom!
ちょっと朝っぱらからどんどんうるさいわよ。何やってんのよもう。
Just your typical early morning anti-explosive training. If you think of it as an expression of diligent devotion to national defense, doesn't this almost bring a tear to your eye? You're welcome to join in, Michiru.
やんないわよ。つうか何よ大爆訓練って。
As you know, Machina happened on the scene of a terror bombing yesterday afternoon. Accordingly, we're training to deal with similar scenarios. There's no downside to acquiring as many survival skills as you can. That's true? Though I'm not sure if I can fully agree with what Yuji is training Machina in. Like, I don't know if the author of this game is actually very familiar with guerrilla tactics, with how they work in the military and all that. So I can't really know if the information is 100% correct.
何かと思えばバカバカしい。
班長殿、有事の際に真っ先におっちんの間抜けを発見しました。
間抜けって言うな。別に訓練自体はバカにしてないわよ。でもこんな大騒ぎするようなこともっと静かにやりなさいな。
Well, I thought a silly over-the-top game might briefly get Makina's mind off the fact that her little sister's fighting for her life, but...
思い出させてどうすんのよ。
Sorry about that, Makina. Michiru says we're being too noisy, so it seems we'll have to call this training off. It may be nothing but an innocent safety drill, but if the local civilian populace can't be convinced, we have no choice but to discontinue it. Please understand, Makina.
ちょっと私が全部悪いみたいに言わないでくれる？
じゃあチルチルも一緒にやる？
それは。
Well, I mean, I do understand what you're trying to say, Michiru. In reality, the odds of any one person encountering a dangerous explosion in their lifetime are probably fairly low. It's more likely that this training will end up being meaningless. But if worst comes to worst, won't the people who wasted a few minutes planning for the what-ifs be the ones who get out alive? Isn't that what survival skills are? For example, Michiru, let's say you take a vacation abroad in a country where the fire laws aren't well-defined or enforced. As you're gobbling down a tasty local delicacy, a fire breaks out in a crowded restaurant. As panicked customers stampede to push their way through the single doorway, you glance upward and notice the flames slowly reaching their way to a cylinder of propane gas. What do? Think fast. Well, this is the difference between a person who's been trained and a helpless spectator.
やけに具体的じゃないのよ。
I'm sure most of this is going in one ear and out the other. You're probably not even taking me seriously. But even so, there's something I feel obligated to tell you. Those who laugh at the diligent self-improvement of others will end up crying in the end. Without fail, try to remember that. I can't deny that, Yuji, but sometimes some of the stuff that we actually learn from you are a bit too meaningless, okay? Self-improvement is good though.
なんか私間違ってた？
チルチル、間違わない人なんていないんだよ。そして間違いに気がついたのなら正せばいいんだよ。人生をやり直すのに遅いなんてことはないのよさ。今すぐ正していけば全然間に合うんだよ。だってチルチルはまだ生きているんだから。
なんかちょっといいこと言ってる風じゃない。まさか解かれた。マキナに人生を解かれたというの、この私は。
In conclusion, it doesn't matter if you approach this as a kind of a game. Remembering the basic principles somewhere in the corner of your mind is good enough. Why not join our anti-explosive training, Michiru?
すげえ、チルチルにって言わせちゃったのよさ。この男、口先だけで完全に一人の女を丸め込んじゃったよ。やっぱパパはすげえのな。
Yeah, Michiru's just dumb, Makina. Didn't we just go over this? Even if you think stuff like that, don't actually say it.
私騙されてる？騙されてないよね。
Michiru, my friend, think this over carefully. I have no reason to deceive you. Even if I did, hypothetically, it would be the result of my concern for your well-being. You understand?
すげえ、この男すげえ。
When we use the phrase sweet talking, the nuance is usually fairly negative. You tend to imagine someone coaxing an innocent through insincere lip service, but there's nothing inherently wrong about persuasion. I can't deny that, that's also very true. For example, if I sweet talk Michiru into re-examining her values, I've peacefully brought her around to my way of thinking. Isn't that an admirable alternative to conflict? Not always, but let's give you the benefit of the doubt. Granted, it's hard to feel too self-satisfied about this particular outcome.
尻の位置が高い。破片でケツ吹き飛ばされるぞ。ケツだけ先に故郷に帰す気か貴様。こら
This is awful. It's just too much. Michiru presses herself flat to the earth in the explosive defense position. Makina mashes a heel down onto her posterior, snarling viciously. You can feel a slight glimmer of conscience in that the girl at least remove her boots first, but seriously. Where did she even pick up this demon marine drill instructor routine? She's impressively proficient at the verbal abuse. What's up?
なんだじゃないわよ。あんたたちが普段やってるレンジャーごっこっていっつもこんなことやってるわけ？
I wouldn't say always, but in general, we engage in roughly similar activities.
ごっこでしょ？ごっこよね。なんであの子こんなに本気なわけ？
Harsh training's a good thing. When you're actually in the field, isn't the thought that drill instructor put me through worse than this kind of reassuring? Approach your drills like battle, and battle like your drills.
それ間違ってない。だって私たち学生よ。
There's nothing wrong with the theory. If anything's wrong about the scenario, would it be the way you swallowed my crap hook, line and sinker?
やっぱり騙されてた。
どうした早速泣き言か。気合が足りないからそんな弱音が出るのよさ。よーし気合を入れ直してやる。鏡跳躍30回よーい。
鏡跳躍？
頭の後ろで手を組んで片膝立てて右足左足って交互にジャンピングスクワットするのよさ。私が横でやるから真似するのよ。はい鏡跳躍よーい。
鏡跳躍よ
はい
ーい。
はい
に
貴様何膝をパキパキ鳴らしておるか。それにもっと高く飛べ。地上15センチだ。最初からやり直し。はいだから膝を鳴らすなよ。もう
仕方がないでしょうが。
Well, I don't think rattling knees honestly matter much either way. But busting your balls over any arbitrary little thing they can find is a drill instructor's job. The girl seems oddly professional about this, down to the strangest little details. I have to admit, this might feel a little too realistic for a game. Makina, your cell phone seems to be ringing.
本当だ。誰からだろう。
Makina takes out her phone from her pocket and checks the caller ID screen, but... What's wrong? Aren't you going to answer that?
レンジャー松島、私が戻るまで続けるように。
レンジャー。
With those words, Makina trots off toward the nearby bicycle parking space, her phone still buzzing away. When it comes to people calling Makina's cell phone, Suo Amane would be by far the most likely possibility, followed by Komine Sachi. But if the call was from either of them, she'd hardly need to be so secretive about it.
16、17、18。
Hey there, Michiru. You can stop now. Sorry about dragging you into the game.
ねえユージ、なんか私ちょっと楽しくなってきたかも。
That's so? Well, good for you.
じゃあ、いいじゃん。
Your knees. Michiru's knees rattle violently as she continues her vigorous leaps. Depending on how you look at it, the strange smile on her face could be seen as the delirious expression of a soldier fallen prey to self-destructive despair. Well, whatever. This is pretty heavy exercise given the heat, so I suppose a bit of temporary lunacy isn't surprising. Heat and exhaustion often make people go a little off in the head. However, the person in question usually doesn't realize it. Asako once told me a story from a time she'd been shipped off to a war in South America. An unending heat wave, combined with enemy bombings that came like clockwork every day, had worn down her nerves to the point of numbness. Eventually, the company commander was wounded in action, and a new first lieutenant who arrived from the rear took over. He was apparently a timid man, prone to trembling in his trench when the bombs began to fall. Asako found his shaking so hilarious that she spent the entire duration of the attacks cackling uproariously. The lieutenant interpreted this as a sign of derangement and promptly had her shipped back home. What's abnormal? What's normal? Depends entirely on your circumstances and perspective. Granted, I'm tempted to interpret Michiru's current actions as evidence that she's lost it. But to Michiru, this course of action might seem like the most reasonable thing in the world. But just as I'm pondering this possibility, the girl suddenly stops moving entirely. Squatting down, she wraps her arms around her knees and begins to mutter indistinctly at the ground. Given this heat and her clear physical exhaustion, damn you, mosquito! Sorry about that. There was like a mosquito, like just in front of me. It's possible that her brain's just melting in a stew of lactic acid.
Papa.
Oh, hey Machina. What's up? Who was that?
おじいちゃまから。
Grandpa would be
ね、私のママのパパ。
the former head of the Irisu family, eh? And what did he have to say?
ここじゃちょっと。
I see. In that case, let's head somewhere a little more private.
ボス。
Actually, hold on just one second. Mind if I ask you a quick question before we go, Machina?
何？
What does the word apus signify?
知んない。っていうか、そこ気になっちゃったの？膝抱えてゴロゴロ転がってるチルチルじゃなくて？
I mean, she's laughing, right?
じゃあ、いっか。
よくないわよ。いった。もういった。なんで笑ってる私。
Michiru seems to have botched a landing and twisted her ankle. The heat and fatigue have clearly done a number on the girl. She laughs hysterically, as though confusing pain with pleasure. Well now, what to do? For the moment, Maki and I surround the girl at a distance and poke at her with a stick. Fortunately enough, Sachi happens to pass by a moment later. After we explain the situation, she says, "Leave it to me," and leaves the courtyard at a trot. Assuming the maid had to run off to call an ambulance or something of the sort, we wait by Michiru's side, offering encouraging words. This continues for about 15 minutes or so. At long last, Sachi returns in a pristine white maid uniform, cheerfully singing "Wee Woo Wee Woo," and proceeds to nimbly snap together a folding aluminum stretcher. She changed clothes first? I'm certain we're all thinking it, but nobody dares to actually voice the words. In any case, Machina and I go with the flow and entrust Michiru to her new nurse's enthusiastic care. Then offer our brave colleague a deeply sincere salute as she's rolled off on the wheeled stretcher like a cylinder of propane on a cart. So, are you willing to tell me about that call?
っていうか、パパには聞いてほしいのよさ。
I'll listen.
マキナです。
おう、マキナか。久しぶりだな。
はい、おじいちゃま、お久しぶりです。でも、どうして急に？
すまんがマキナ、もう少し大きな声で。私ももう年でな。耳がよう聞こえ。
The person on the other end of the line was Makina's grandfather. The call had been placed directly by Arisu Haruchika, the man who had led the Arisu clan before his retirement.
お前ももう知っとるとは思うが、サリナが事故に遭った。
あれは事故なんかじゃないよ、おじいちゃま。
事故なんだよ、マキナ。あれは不幸な事故だ。わかるか？
わかりたくもないよ。
マキナよ、どうだ？そろそろ家に帰ってこんか。
今さらだよ、おじいちゃま。何を今さら言い出すんだよ。
そう怒るな。私がお前の見舞いに行かなかったのにも、それなりの理由があってだな。それに、私はお前が退院したことも、 先日まで知らされておらんかった。
A faction within the branch house, afraid of Machina's potential return, must have deliberately prevented that information from reaching him. However, when a hefty check of 70 million yen was issued in Machina's name, an inquiry from the bank found its way directly to her grandfather. Only then did he learn Machina had been released some time before.
私はお前が未だに廃人状態のまま長期入院していると聞かされていたんだ。退院したのならなぜ顔を見せに来ない？
Machina struggled to find an answer to her grandfather's question.
正隆君のことをまだ気にしておるのか？あれは事故だったんだ。
Her father, the person she loved more than anyone else in the world, was gone. All that was left there was her nasty, high-strung mother, her grandmother, who used to stare at her with the cold eyes of someone contemplating a broken toy. Her kind but willfully blind grandfather, utterly unreliable when push came to shove. And the servants who suffocated her spirit, justifying everything with the words, "I'm afraid these were my instructions." At a glance, that house offered everything a person could possibly want. But it was a hollow shell full of hollow people, a gilded prison. It was the sort of place where saying, "I want to learn how to ride a bike," would result in someone buying you a purebred horse you hadn't even asked for. What was there to miss about a home like that?
おじいちゃま、私はもうあの家には戻りたくない。
They'd no doubt take good care of her if she returned, but only because they valued her as an asset or respected her position. Nobody there would even try to understand Machina herself. Some might say, "So what? Sounds like a pretty good deal," and maybe they wouldn't be wrong. Others might say, "You ran away from home, but you're still going to this school on your family's money, living completely freely. What right do you have to complain?" And she couldn't argue the point. But even so, just thinking about returning to that house made Machina's eyes fill with tears. Everything that was precious to her, everything she needed to be herself, her individuality and personality, all such inconvenient baggage would be ruthlessly thrown away. Money and power warp people beyond recognition. Machina knew that all too well. She was simply afraid of that house.
お前の気持ちはわかる。背負うものの大きさを考えれば誰もができる仕事ではなかろうし、それが恐ろしくもあろう。だがそれゆえにお前にしかできん仕事でもあるということだ。戻ってこい、マキナ。
Oh, fuck you, Grandpa.
嫌だよ、おじいちゃま。マキナはもう昔のマキナじゃないのよさ。もう昔みたいにはなりたくないのよ。
マジでか。
マジだよ。おじいちゃま、ごめんね。もう嫌なの。耐えられないのよさ。
そうか。しかしそうは言っても誰も認めんだろうな。まあそうだな。すぐに戻れとは言わん。しばらく考えてみたらどうだ。1年後の自分、10年後の自分、そして30年後の自分がどうなっているかをよーく考えて、それか
Oh,
ら
sorry.
どうするか。
多分おじいちゃ
Thought he
ま
was done.
っていうか、宗家の人たちは私のことを諦めてないと思う。もしかしたら今回の爆破事件だって私を家に戻すために宗家の人たちが起こしたのかもしれない。
But if they'd screw up even slightly, you could have gotten blown away too.
もし事件を起こしたのが宗家の人たちなら、私があの場に居合わせたのは本当に想定外のことで、相当慌てたと思う。
I don't really follow all this business with the main family and branch family. At the end of the day, what are their objectives here?
結局のところこれは宗家と分家のお家騒動なのよさ。宗家筋直系の私と分家の代表の妹、どっちがイリス家を継ぐかの争いで、あの人たちの目的はお金と権力。
I'm not familiar with the exact details, but I understand the scale of the prize we're talking about here. The Risu family's long-standing assets extend to countless subsidiaries, both foreign and domestic. They're not just prominent in industrial manufacturing, financial, and retail, but also major players in iron and steel, shipbuilding, and even armaments. The money flowing through the Irisu apparently rivals the budget of a small country. That is pretty impressive. A pencil made by the Irisu scratches down your name on the birth certificate in a government office. You eat food imported by the Irisu in your school cafeteria as you grow. In time, you find employment in an enterprise under the Irisu umbrella. When you grow sick, you're taken to an Irisu hospital, and when you die, you rest under a gravestone manufactured by the Irisu. If you're born in Japan, it's all but impossible not to interact with the family in some way. But despite this astonishingly wide influence, the name Irisu itself will probably get you a blank stare as often as not. The brands in their conglomerate include many household names, but the parent company itself is fairly obscure. They say those with real power don't tend to advertise it, like the old nobility, hidden up above the clouds. And Irisu Makina, who stands to inherit the seat at the very top of this lofty house, is still in her teens, practically a child. Who could blame the girl if she panicked in the face of that burden, if she ran away and tried to hide? Your grandfather said you don't have to come back immediately, didn't he? In that case, seems to me you should start by mulling this over. First of all, whether you're going to return to your family or not. And once that's settled, figure out what you're going to do when you return, or what you're going to do when you refuse. What you really want to do from now on. Your grandpa gave you the chance to deliberate about this, right?
そうだけど、でもおじいちゃまだっていつまでも待っていてくれるわけじゃないと思うのよ。
Not a problem. I'll get you as much time as you need.
どうやって？
That depends on how they want to play it. I haven't settled on any specific plans yet, but I'm ready to do anything I need to.
なんての？
That's right. Don't you remember? I made you a promise, Makina. Even if everyone else in the world became your enemy, I'd protect you. Those words weren't just for show. I really will do whatever I possibly can. You don't need to worry about a thing. Just go about your normal life, exactly as you have.
でも
Don't worry. You've given me fair compensation for my services. There's nothing to feel guilty about. You're important enough to me that I was willing to make that promise. Hell, at this point, you've become my purpose in life. I'm living for your sake, and I'll die for your sake. I've been prepared for that from the start. In conclusion, there's no problem here. I'll kick the crap out of every last jackass stupid enough to harass you. You just sit back and see what a man who's found something to protect can do.
いいの？それでいいの？
I'm your father, remember? Showing off in front of our kids like this is what we do. There's something a father doesn't know. No problem he can't overcome. In other words, relax and think this over carefully. Whatever your choice, I'll accept it absolutely and support you with everything I've got. I don't think that's how a father should technically do it, but I guess this is the dad that, you know, promotes independence. Overcome with emotion, even beginning to sob a little, Makina ducks her upper body low to the ground and rushes forward. A split second later, her forehead smacks into my solar plexus with a solid thunk. Ugh! To be perfectly honest, the impact's so sharp it's difficult even to breathe properly. But sinking to my knees here would hardly help me keep the girl's heart won trust. With an extremely strained attempt at a smile, I grab hold of Makina's fuzzy little head and squeeze her tightly against my chest. strongly, very strongly, in the protective bear hug of a reliable parent. After that day, I've attempted to stay close by Makina's side as much as possible. I sincerely doubt there'd be many idiots reckless enough to try and pull anything inside the school. Essentially a stronghold of the Sakaki family. But preparing for that long shot, what if, is my job. Fortunately, I've been trained in guarding someone without even allowing them to realize they're being protected. The only real problem is night. Without a doubt, human beings are most defenseless when they're sleeping. It's the ideal timing for a raid or a kidnapping attempt. And even I'm not capable of staying awake constantly to protect the girl as she sleeps. As the single simplest countermeasure, it would be ideal if I could arrange to spend my nights with Makina, but...
あのね、今日からパパの部屋でパパと一緒に寝てもいいかな。
Caught off guard by this admittedly rather abrupt inquiry, Amani stares intently down into Makina's face for a long moment, then turns her laser-like gaze on me. Makina's expression is unusually serious, with no hint of the standard messing around. And although this would usually be the part where I deliver a karate chop to that well-positioned head of hers, I simply stand quietly behind the girl without raising any objection. Apparently, Amani senses something strange in the air. She lets out a long, soft sigh, then nods deeply to herself.
マキナ、あんた自分が何を言っているかちゃんと分かってる？あんたが決めたのなら私は何も言わない。でも一度決めたのならちゃんと最後まで頑張るのよ。怖かったり痛かったりしても途中でやめてって言っちゃダメよ。永遠に続く夜なんてない。必ず朝は来るから頑張るのよ。
We get it, Amane. This is the part where Makina and I screw. We get it!
頑張るけど。
ユージもマキナが痛がってたり苦しんでたりしたら自分の都合ばっかりじゃなくマキナのこともちゃんと考えてあげなきゃダメよ。
Don't worry, Amane. Simple is best. Keep being you, okay? Well, yeah, that's the plan.
それとちゃんと否認はするのよ。コンドーム持ってる？
Okay, Amane, let me return that question from a moment ago. Do you have any idea what you're saying?
え？
What? Doesn't cut it, woman. Although it seems there may have been a slight discrepancy in our understanding of the situation, it was agreed that Makina would spend her nights in my room. Regrettably, my room only has one bed, and it's a single. It wouldn't be so bad to huddle together for warmth in the winter, but at this time of the year, the idea's not particularly appealing. Yielding the bed to Makina, I spread out a mat and sleeping bag on the floor for myself.
一緒に寝てはくれないのね。
Little hard for that, don't you think? At my old school, 10 at night was lights out time, and by 11 they'd cut the electricity to the dorm off entirely. Even the air conditioners were dead. In other words, I'm fairly accustomed to sleeping under hot and stuffy conditions, but there's hardly any need to go out of my way to recreate the experience. And also, if by any chance someone really did attack, we'd be better off sleeping at different points in the room. Attack teammate probably leads off by knocking at the door. Just as I'm getting up to reach for the doorknob, they blast a lock, upper and lower hinges with simultaneous shotgun fire. As I flinch backward reflexively, Team B crashes in through the window on the opposite side of the room and pincers us both. Doubt I'll be able to hold them off for even 3 minutes. Compared to me and Makina huddling together in one bed, where we can easily be encircled, dispersing ourselves on the bed and floor expands the area that has to be targeted, giving us more options. Alright, time to sleep. Get in bed. Mumbling her approval listlessly, Makina turns around to face away from me, then abruptly begins pulling off her clothes on the spot. After stripping down to her underpants, she takes a big t-shirt, gone all loose in the color, presumably a hand-me-down from Amane, and pulls it over her head as sleepwear. Might be a t-shirt to Amane, but on Makina it's a one-piece dress. Resisting a sudden urge to smile, I open my window and drape the towel I use after my shower outside to dry. I carefully position the towel just low enough to hide the bed Makina's crawled into almost completely, and deliberately leave the curtains open. For anyone out there interested in observing this room, this strip of fabric will present a simple hindrance. If the bath towel's position shifts even slightly overnight, it would suggest the existence of someone looking inside. The degree and direction of the movement could even help determine the point from which they're observing us. Basic tricks like this won't often accomplish much against a professional, but a multitude of small insurance policies is the best way to keep things safe and quiet. Turning off the lights. You sure she's actually wearing anything there, Yuji? The sprite seems to say otherwise. A sliver of pale light streams into the room from the streetlights outside. There's no sound but the chirping of insects. Somewhere far away, the cicadas are still singing. The bright city and warm concrete might have caused them to confuse night with day. I yawn inside my sleeping bag, feeling dull fatigue slowly spreading out from behind my eyes. Going to bed at this hour should mean I'll wake up briefly around 2:30 in the morning. I'll check up on Makina, then go back to sleep for a few hours.
ねえパパ
Hmm? What's up?
何かお話しして
What? Again? You have anything specific in mind?
パパは将来なりたいものとかある
Something I want to be, huh? I think this is the first time she's asked me about my future rather than my past. Putting aside the question of whether I'll even have one, it's not like I haven't daydream about it every once in a while. But even so, there's a color on my neck that isn't coming off till I'm dead. Taking that into consideration, the number of paths realistically open to me are severely limited. Let's see. Guess I see myself ending up as a taxi driver. Maybe. It's a classic choice for our employees. While spending most of your time working for a private taxi company, you get a minor allowance of 150,000 yen a month as a reserve member, ready to be called up when needed. The job opens to an employee on the reserve aren't strictly limited, but ideally they want you in a position where you can respond quickly to an emergency summons. And from that perspective, a taxi driver is probably the best possible option. How about you, Makina? You have any ideas about the future? You don't have to think about the thing with your family. I'm asking about your dreams.
将来なんて考えたこともなかったのよさただもう実家には戻りたくないってそのことばっかり考えてて自分が何をやりたいとか自分には何ができるんだろうとかこのままず
Oh,
っ
sorry, I
と
thought she was done.
この学園にいたいってずっと優しい人と一緒にいたいって漠然とそんな風に考えていたけどそんなの許されないよね
Well, you're going to graduate eventually.
でもね最近はね少し考えるようになったのよ
Oh, mind letting me hear your thoughts?
ね私今パン屋さんで修行してるでしょそんでねいつかお金を貯めてパン屋さんを始めるのよさ
Ah, that's right. She did say something about a sniper or a baker, didn't she?
そのパン屋さんはね海のそばにあって喫茶店みたいになってて焼きたてのパンをお店で食べられるのよでね美浜を卒業した後もみんなが気楽に来れるお店にしたいのよさそうすればみんないつだって会えるのよ
There's an idea. If you had a bakery like that, I could stop by in my taxi to hang out.
もうパパには私と一緒にお店をやってほしいのよさ
What? I'm part of this too?
そう私がパンを焼くからパパはコーヒーとか紅茶を入れる人どう
I see. Yeah, I guess that kind of life wouldn't be half bad either.
だろうきっと毎日が楽しいのよずっとずっと楽しいのよ
Yeah, almost like a dream. I don't know exactly what kind of life Makina's lived up until now, but I do know a little about the Irisu, a family of immense power that stays behind the scenes, constantly maneuvering deep below the surface of society. I know Makina didn't ask for the role they forced onto her shoulders. Even as a child, she sensed something strange about the world she lived in, so clearly different from that of others her age. And in time, she came directly into contact with the foul corruption inside her own family. That corruption claimed her father, the only person in the Irisu household who had really loved her. She hasn't had a real ally since. Even that small goal of opening a bakery, hardly the wildest of ambitions, would seem like a faint and distant dream to Makina. Makina's hopes for the future had stayed hidden away deep inside for some time. Maybe speaking them out loud provided something in the way of catharsis. The girl's already snoring softly into her pillow. If my child has dreams, I won't spare any effort to help make them happen. That's my role now. The problem is Makina's grandfather. The girls told him that she isn't going to return, but I can't imagine he'll accept that answer. Makina wants nothing to do with the Irisu clan anymore, but simply declaring that won't bring this to an end. Even if we did manage to win over her grandfather, the Irisu aren't a small enough organization to be swayed by the will of one soft-hearted individual. It was too late the moment the old man learned she was in good health. Makina will be dragged into a power struggle, whether or not she wants any part of it. There's no longer any room for doubt. Even if I make the whole world my enemy, might have gone a little overboard with that one. But there are some things a man has to do. I made my decision, and I'll carry it out. Even if that means tearing the chains off my neck and becoming a stray. I think this job might be the reason why I'm here. And in that light, it feels as though my life might have some small meaning of its own. The next morning, I wake up drenched in sweat. Not that anything was out of the ordinary, just the usual nightmare. As planned, I woke up at 2:30 to check up on Makina. The girl was still out like a light, drooling onto an already filthy pillow. All well and good. But when I tried to go back to sleep, I found my nerves were badly on edge. Although I kept my eyes shut and turned around my sleeping bag many times, I couldn't manage to get much rest. When I did nod off into light slumber, I'd spend maybe 15 minutes in the nightmare, then jerk awake again. The pattern played out again and again, straight through to morning. Just how long will it take before I can forget that day? The memory's glued in place, never fading no matter how many years pass. I can even remember the dull sensation of the weapon against my palm. As I wipe beads of sticky sweat from my forehead with the back of one hand, my half-open eyelids twitch at the touch of summer sunlight. The light pouring in through the window is already intense, suggesting another blazing hot day to come. This is no good. My harsh breathing just doesn't want to settle down. I can't get back into my normal rhythm. This heavy, irritating feeling, as though I've got some malevolent spirit squatting on my back, lingers on and on. Suddenly realizing my throat's painfully dry, I force my leaden body up, off the ground and crawl out of my sleeping bag. I pour myself a glass of tap water from the kitchen sink, and then another, and another. I can't stop sweating. No matter how many times I wipe the salty liquid off my face, the beads keep trickling down. In the moment I realize they're actually tears, I sense someone gazing at me. Nothing's wrong. No doubt awoken by the sound of the gushing faucet, Makina is sitting up in bed. Her eyes are still blurry with sleep, but her gaze is focused intently on me. It's nothing. I'm just sweating. Rather than embarrassment at letting the girl see me crying, fear at having revealed my weakness takes precedence. There we go. Menaced by some vaguely defined shadow, overwhelmed by the need to escape, I hurriedly throw on my running clothes. Gonna run for a while. Beyond pathetic. No matter how many years pass, I'm still a gutless weakling brought to tears by dreams. I'm always running away from something, always being chased by shadows. Even after my master took me in, this fundamental cowardice never really went away. I need to protect Makina. For her sake, of course, but also for mine. If I were to lose even her, I don't think I'd be able to get back on my feet again. I run into the muggy morning, as if fleeing from that frightening thought. Is this like the sex scene? Makina, are you really alright with this?
パパに奪ってほしいのよ。
Very well then. Papa will now rob you of your virginity. Jesus, you.
奪っちゃって。
Here we go.
ごめん、待って。これはシャレにならんのよさ。
I'm not done yet, you know.
いや、無理。これ以上は普通に避けちゃうし。ごめんなさい。今日はもうギブってことで。
Let me explain something to you, Makina. When a man sets his mind on something, he can't just casually reverse course halfway through. You understand? That is not true. Anyone can actually stop if they want to, Yuji. Don't become a beast. We are human beings, okay? Don't let your instincts control you.
そりゃ、わかるけど。
And don't buy into his bullshit, Makina. Trust me, a man can actually hold it in if he has enough will. Okay then, let's get back to it. Makina, wasn't that a figure of speech? It seems you're literally tearing.
避けちゃったそれこそおつまみチーズのごとく
And having been ripped apart, Makina.
二人になっちゃいました
The fuck is going on right now? Are you sleeping, Yuji? The hell?
てな感じで
Oh.
マキナが2人に
What is wrong with you, woman? When I returned from my run, I found Amane waiting for me in the lounge. From what she tells me, it seems Makina has been acting strangely. Early this morning, the girl visited Amane's room with a somewhat discouraged look on her face and proceeded to sit around sighing heavily. Amane tried to talk to her, but she answered only in vague grunts and monosyllables. See, I actually want to say quite a lot about this current scene right here, but I don't know what I constitute or what I say will be hinted as a spoiler or not. Alright, I'm just gonna be quiet for now. That's why I haven't really been giving my thoughts all that much. Because I am trying to remember what is going on in Makina's route. Like, I'm cross-checking my memory if I remember what was going to happen or not. But yeah, because I remember what's going to happen next, I'm kind of afraid that I might potentially spoil what's going on and what the characters haven't even said, you know? Speculating that things hadn't gone well in bed last night, Amane searched for appropriate words of comfort. But when she looked back after taking her eyes off the girl for a brief moment, it seems that Makina had begun vigorously netting wheat flour dough in the kitchen, cheerfully singing an incomprehensible mystery song to herself. Puzzled at this rapid improvement in her mood, Amane shrugged and went off to take a shower. But when she returned to her room, this time she found Makina curled up in the corner of the room with her head in her hands, groaning miserably. Faced with these absurdly dramatic and seemingly random mood swings, Amane arrived at a bold hypothesis.
マキナは2人いるこれはそういうトリックなのかと
Alright, Amane, first of all, let's think this over rationally. Who would this trick be trying to deceive, and to what end?
いやまあ別に私も本気で言ってるわけじゃないけどね昨日の夜何かあったのかなってちょっと気になってさ
Nothing worth mentioning. I do have a rough idea as to the root cause of Makina's unusual behavior. The girl's had a heavy problem fall onto her out of nowhere, and it's not something she can carelessly discuss with her friends. But moping around in silence would only attract concern. making her feel even more awkward and miserable. So she forces herself to smile and sing in an attempt at lightening the mood. But soon enough, some careless thought abruptly reminded her of her worries. And once again, Makina ended up with her head in her hands, sighing and groaning over the problem she can't possibly resolve on her own. The one and only person she can really talk to about all this is me. Seeing tears on my face this morning must have worsened her emotional turmoil. Rather than running off in an inept attempt at hiding what happened, I should have sat down and talked to the girl honestly. Looking back on it now, I regret that choice.
それで結局昨夜は男女の性的な行為は営まれたのでしょうか？
Well, hello to you too. I mean, why are you even here?
風見さんとマキちゃんが同勤するというお話を昨夜マネさんから聞き及びましては、老婆心とでも申しましょうか。
What? What the hell is a yenta?
マキちゃんの友人として安閑としてはいられようもなく、結果の遺憾を本人の口から厳しく問いただそうかと思いまして。
Look, I don't know how many times I have to say this, but I didn't do anything I need to feel guilty about. Makina came to my room and slept in my bed. I slept on the floor. That's it. Nothing else happened. Clear enough for you?
ああ、だからマキナ、なんか元気がなかったのね。
風見さん、あなたには失望しました。
Damn you people! It's not always about sex, damn it. Sorry. Why?
いいユージ、女の子がね、男の部屋に泊まるってのは、それはもうやって OK ってことなのよ。
Not everyone is like that, Amane. Have you never heard of a platonic relationship? Jesus Christ, woman. I really don't think that's a universal law. Personally, I've heard plenty of stories about women crashing at a male friend's place after missing the last train home, then awkwardly shooting the guy down when he tries to make a move.
抱かれる意を決し、いつもより念入りにお風呂に入って抱えた枕で高鳴る胸の鼓動を隠しつつも、さあいつでも抱きなさいと身構えていればあっさりする。これではマキちゃんの女としてのプライドがズタズタです。
Okay. But what exactly are you telling me to do here?
マキナなら、今私の部屋でパン焼いてるから、そっと背中を抱きしめて、マキナ、お前が欲しいって言えばいいのよ。
But look, what if she just shakes me off and yell, cut it out or something? Now I'm the one nursing the bruised ego. Sulky women are troublesome beyond measure. The representative director of the Troublesome Women's Society, Madame JB, is the prototypical example. Not only will she shriek, cut it out, when you try to make amends, if you actually stop, she'll get even angrier. It's truly incomprehensible.
なんだかんだと大人ぶってはいても、所詮はユージもお子ちゃまね。あんた全然わかってないわよ。
Just what I needed, another pain in the ass.
いい？ツンデレが嫌と言ったときはオッケーってことなのよ。わかる？押すなと言ったら押せ！それがツンデレよ。
Don't listen to this advice, by the way. Please do not listen to the advice of, like, visual novels. If you please don't.
それはツンデレではなくリアクション芸人なのではないでしょうか。
In the first place, Makina's not exactly a tsundere, right?
とにかく嫌って言ってても心の中じゃもっとグイグイ来なさいよ。嫌がってる私を無理やりねじ伏せてみなさいよってことなのよ。わかる？
Oh, sorry. Well, sort of, I guess. Maybe.
あなたたち、またこんなところで朝からたむろして、今度は何の悪巧みをしているというの？いや、別に悪巧みってわけじゃないわよ。マキナが昨夜はユージの部屋に泊まったってのに、何もなかったって言うから。まずはそれが本当か嘘かって話から始まって、もし本当に何もなかったのなら何が原因なんだろうねって、そんな感じ？風見くん。
Yes?
あなたの他人から誤解されやすい性格や同行した冗談を平気で口にする態度に軽微な問題はあったとしても、決して不誠実だとは思ってはいないし、私はこれでも一応あなたのことは節度のある人物だと認識しています。 ですから正直に言いなさい。イリスさんを抱いたの。
Like I said, I didn't touch the girl. How many times do people expect me to explain this?
本当に何もしなく信用する。
誰なの？
Ah, you're so damn noisy. Don't all start squawking at once.
お待たせ、パンが焼けたのよさ。ってみんなしてこんなとこ集まって何してんのよさ。
Don't ask me. Too much damn time on their hands. The lot of them.
なんかよくわかんないけど、みんなパン食べる？待望の新作
M8i2？
そう、 M はメロンパンを表す形式記号で、8は8番目に作ったパンを表して、I は制作者のイニシャル、イリスの I、 最後の2は改良番号。2回改良を受けましたよって意味なのよさ。
見た目は普通のメロンパンじゃない。何をどう改良したってのよ。
パンは焼くと膨らむでしょ。だから表面のクッキー生地とベースのパンの間に波形に型抜きしたパイ生地が挟んであるのよさ。メロンパンの命ともいえるかじりついた時のザクザク感を大事にしてみました。
Damn, I kind of want some melon bun now. Sadly, there's no actual good melon bun here in this country. At least not that I know. The one with custard in Japan is really good. Damn. Even the convenience store ones are pretty nice. Sort of like the wing of an airplane, structurally speaking.
そう、ヒントはそれ。錦大帝の羽と同じ構造なのよさ。
I guess I wouldn't mind buying some convenience store melon bun here too. They're not that good, but probably would get rid of the craving. No kidding? You've clearly put some thought into it.
まあ、振ってみ。結構いけるのよさ。
I see. That layer of air between the surface and main body really does emphasize the crispness of the cookie dough. Not half bad.
ハロー、みんなも食べて感想を聞かせてほしいのよさ。
どれどれ？あ、ほんとだ。なんか今までにはないメロンパン感覚。ふんわりザクザク？私これ結構好きかも。
でもなんかスカスカしてるわね。食べ応えが足りないんじゃない？
そうね。でも温かい状態でアイスクリームと一緒に食べたら美味しいかもしれないわね。
やはり食べ応えが今後の課題なのよさ。早急に M8i3 の開発に着手せねば。
What, you've already got the next edition planned out?
パンと生地の間に井桁を組んで中にクリームをサンドするインテグラルタンク構造にしてみるのよさ。
Yeah, that sounds delicious, Machina. Damn, I'm getting hungry now. So we're switching from the flying boat to the flying cigar, huh?
かじりついた瞬間にブビュッとクリームがはみ出る新構造、名付けてワンバイトオーバーフロー。これは売れる。食べにくいけど売れる。
Not sure if I follow the logic there, but a passion for experimentation is a good thing. In a society defined by abundant plenty, something that's tasty but tricky to eat might distinguish itself as high class precisely because of the slight inconvenience involved. No thank you. I'd rather eat something that's practical but very delicious myself. The girl might not be too far off conceptually. That's all well and good, but at this point, Amani takes the conversation down a troubling new path.
前から聞こう思うててんけど、なんでメロンパンなのに丸いん？丸いのはサンライズやん？
Huh? Thanks to this cryptic remark from our former Kanto resident, what the heck is a sunrise becomes a hot topic of the moment. Not that I particularly give a shit. Okay.
バイトに行ってくるのよさ。
Good. Give him hell, kid. Before long, it's 8 o'clock, and Makina's setting off for her shift at the bakery. Watching the girl march triumphantly out of the room, Her prototype M8i2 safely stowed in a plastic bag, I nod deeply to myself. Alright then. Guess I should get going as well.
あんたもどっか行くの？
Yeah, I'm working today myself. Even as I'm speaking, I quickly slip into one of my work uniforms, then swing a bag full of tools over my shoulder.
帰りは？何時頃になるの？
Let's see, 5:30 or so, as long as nothing comes up.
そう。じゃあマキナと大体同じ時間だね。晩ご飯用意して待ってるから、遅くなるときは電話して。
Will do. Alright then, I'll be on my way.
はい、いってらっしゃい。
Suppose this still qualifies as a part-time job, but it's different from the normal routine. Today, I'm working as Makina's bodyguard. I receive a full 70 million in advance payment on this one, so I can't exactly treat it like a game. That sort of money warrants a serious approach and professional attitude. Stepping out of the school gate, I casually turn my head to glance in the direction of the shopping district, immediately spotting Makina in the distance. After confirming that there aren't any suspicious cars stopped in the area, I start walking after her on the opposite side of the street. There'd hardly be any point to tagging right along after the girl. Easier and less conspicuous, just to walk her down to the station in the first place. But I do have my reasons for taking a more furtive approach. First of all, I don't want Makina to be aware that I'm guarding her. If she knows I'm protecting her, that knowledge would start to influence her actions in revealing ways. Even if I told her to try and act normally, an awkward movement would give it away sooner or later, tipping off anyone who might be observing. If the enemy realizes Makina as a bodyguard, they'll change their tactics accordingly. That wouldn't be much fun from my perspective. The ideal is to keep both Makina and anyone targeting her ignorant of my presence. Therefore, after following her from a good distance for a while, I began cutting quickly through the side streets to get ahead of her. If I was targeting Makina, I'd spend 7 days at the very least on observation, trying to get a solid grasp of her daily patterns of behavior. Before making any attempt, I'd compile the most detailed possible data I could on her walking speed, route, and typical itinerary. Sniper, kidnapper, whatever, any pro would do the same. In fact, I spent some time this morning putting myself in the shoes of an assassin, narrowing down some potential sniping points. I devised and evaluated a few plausible spots, simulating attempts at shooting Makina on her way to and from the bakery. But as a target, the girl's genuinely troublesome. First of all, she's a shrimp. Makes for a smaller target, more easily obstructed. Secondly, her actions are frequently hard to anticipate. If the girl comes across some hot hostess out walking a cute little doggy, she'll without a doubt stop dead and hold a lengthy conversation with the animal. On top of it all, there's that fundamentally whimsical personality. If she needs to make 3 turns to her destination, she'll randomly change the route she uses, so it's hard to nail down an exact route. Taking all those negatives into account, there are 2 spots that seem potentially effective. I take out a hand-drawn map from the pocket of my school uniform. It's a detailed sketch of the terrain within a decent radius of the station, with 2 lines connecting hypothetical sniping points and impact points. The first potentially effective choice is a shot from on top of the pedestrian bridge over the East Beach Line rail track, which provides a good view of the main shopping district area. There's practically no cover to worry about, and the distance will only be about 300 meters. On top of which, you'd be hitting the girl from behind, making it easier to line up the shot. Problem is, you'd stand out too much. If you openly set up shop with a rifle up there, even the dim-witted grade schooler would point and yell, "Look, mommy, it's an assassin!" Considering the risk of exposure, you'd probably have to snipe from under the canopy of a parked truck. But that'll limit your angle of fire severely, making it easy to lose track of the target in the crowd. Not too appetizing. I do take a look just for safety's sake, but there don't seem to be any suspicious idling cars in the area I mark as suitable for sniping. Snipers need time to prepare. It's not like they're going to tear up, fire a shot from the window, then peel out. Probably safe to conclude no one's shooting from there today. But there's also the second possibility. A shot from the 8th floor of the parking garage south of Mishima Cape Station, next to the fashion building currently under construction. The structure itself isn't open to the public yet, so entry is restricted. In other words, once you slip in, you'll be able to spread out a pretty sizable shot without any awkward questions from passerby. Also, since it's a downward angle, you should get a clean line of sight. The target's short stature won't be nearly so much of an issue. However, the shot would require firing between two buildings, obstructed by an elevated park and the Mishima Cape Station itself. No matter where you position yourself, you're not going to get even a 2-meter slice of visibility. What's more, you'd be firing at Makina from the side as she walks past, from a range of 600 meters. If you take the time to identify the girl after she enters your field of view, she'll have walked right by before you can get a bullet over there. In other words, you've got one chance, and it only lasts a few seconds. Can't see it working without the cooperator following the target, constantly keeping you up to date on her movements. Stopping just before an intersection that connects my side street to the main road, I peer down at the map in my hand, play-acting a blue-collar worker new to the area. And while glancing around as if to search for landmarks, I spot Makina approaching from the left. Keeping the brim of my plain workman's cap low over my eyes, I proceed to gaze in her general direction, not focusing on anything in particular. When you start deliberately darting your eyes around looking for suspicious people, you tend to get tunnel vision, actually end up missing more than you would otherwise. On the other hand, when you take in the scene as a whole like you're appreciating a work of art, people moving in unusual ways will stand out as if painted in vivid hues. Right now, we're near the very tail end of the morning rush to work. There aren't many people on the streets. Among the sparse crowd, one man quickly catches my eye. He's strolling along behind Makina, shooting her regular glances while putting on a great show of casually looking around the area. Complete amateur, any way you look at him. The tale's comically awful. I've seen love-struck middle schoolers stalking their crushes with more subtlety. At a glance, the guy seems to be in his late 20s or early 30s. He's wearing a 3,000 yen pair of loafers and a 2 for 30,000 suit. He's also got on a pair of eyeglasses with unusually thick black rims, perhaps as an attempt at disguise, but counterproductively, they make him stand out in the crowd. I could almost just leave this be, not like he's going to get anything worthwhile. But even so, I'd like to know who this kid belongs to. Folding the map into a neat square and putting it away in my chest pocket, I casually step into a nearby Busky Robinson. Every time they use like this stupid, names so that they don't get hit by copyright, I always laugh, damn it. Busky Robinson Ice Cream Store.
8月12日午前8時15分対象者の追尾を開始記録者井原直之
Muttering into the mic of the IC recorder set up in the inside pocket of his jacket, Ihara followed the girl from behind with his eyes. For crying out loud, why did it turn out like this? It had been a year and a half since Ihara resigned his previous position in a security company and took a job at the IGS detective agency through a friend's recommendation. Detective work had appealed strongly to Ihara since childhood. He did, of course, understand by now that a real flatfoot's job wasn't the hard-boiled stuff from the stories. But changing the title in his business card from guard to investigator proved too tempting to pass up. However, even after 3 long months of training, he was relegated to sorting raw material, processing documents, and other desk work. And the rare field work that trickled down to him tended to be odd jobs like investigating adultery or searching for lost pets. He'd spent the better part of a year waiting unhappily for a chance to flex his muscles a little. Just as he was starting to feel something like regret at ditching the security guard position, a senior employee abruptly stopped by and said, "Chief wants to see you. Get a move on. Your clothes are fine as they are." Ihara's first reaction had been to tilt his head in confusion and try to remember if he'd screwed anything up lately. But then, the man leaned down and whispered, "Seems like you're getting a pretty important job." He'd honestly been pretty damn excited for the chance to get some real work. Thrilled even, until he learned the important job amounted to stalking a little girl. More than a bit of a letdown. That said, the Serisu Makina kid, currently tromping along the sidewalk 8 meters or so ahead of him, was certainly keeping Ihara on his toes. The girl was constantly glancing around the area as she walked, and if something caught her eye, she'd often come to an abrupt and total halt. Keeping a constant distance was proving very difficult. And even worse, she seemed to have a habit of glancing briefly behind her every time she turned a corner, never failing to startle him. Good job, Yuji. It almost seemed like she might just have a terrible sense of direction. That constantly moving gaze could be her memorizing the area, and turning around might be an attempt to imagine the trip back home ahead of time. But according to the documents, Irisu Makina had been living in the city for nearly a year. It was hard to imagine getting lost would be a big issue at this point. Was she simply one of those ADHD kids, or what? If you looked at her behavior as deliberate acts of caution, you could almost see her as a well-trained spy, but Ihara knew he was probably deluding himself in that one. Just some part of him trying to make this more interesting than it really was. In reality, Irisu Makina didn't project the fierce, predatory menace of a trained agent. If anything, she looked more like a nervous little chipmunk, fearful of everything around her. The girl had come to a sudden stop. She seemed to be peering into the LCD screen of a small electronic toy tied to her belt. Unless he was careful, Ihara was going to overtake her. He knew the girl's destination, so it would still be possible to resume surveillance even after passing her. But for now, he wanted to keep observing from behind. Ihara slowed his pace a little, then reached into his inner jacket pocket and pretended to search for his cell phone. What are you doing? Hurry up and get walking. At this rate, he was going to walk right on by her. It'd be hard to stay out of his target's field of vision much longer. At this point, maybe abandoning the surveillance outright would be best. It would be easy enough to take out this phone, check his mail, then abruptly turn around as if called back on some urgent errand. What do I do? Time to call it a day? 5 meters from his target, Ihara decided to make up his mind one way or the other within the next 2 meters. But as he continued his slow approach, Irisu Makina suddenly looked up from the toy at her waist, then broke into a pattering run. Damn it! She's completely unpredictable. What now? Run after her? He knew the girl was headed to her bakery, so it probably wasn't strictly necessary. But there wasn't much point in a surveillance mission if he couldn't keep her in sight. I clicked my button. What happened? Do I need to click again? Oh, what the fuck? Okay, that scared me. I was clicking shit and then... I guess I need to click some more? Is the game frozen or something? That was weird. I think the game's frozen. Yeah, I like, it's legit not like moving. Ah, sorry. A man in a pea green work uniform had suddenly stepped out from a side street directly into Ihara's path. Are you serious? Is the game like frozen? Let me like save and then reload.
セーブしますか?
This is weird.
ロードしますね.
Wow, okay, so I don't think this is... Oh, there we go, okay. Looks like it worked. Okay, the laborer was wearing a cap of the same color low over his eyes. In his left hand, he was holding a piece of paper that looked like a crud map. Very sorry, are you okay? The man bowed his head apologetically. Must have been looking at his map as he walked. Judging from his awkward Japanese, he probably wasn't from around here. For some reason, there was a timid half smile on his face. When Ihara followed the man's gaze down, he couldn't help shouting out loud. The breast of his suit was covered in thick gobs of ice cream. When he took another look, Ihara realized the man was holding a half-eaten cone in his other hand. Looked like one of those pat-pong shower numbers from the Baskin-Robinson place the kids were going to these days. I don't know what the actual flavor of that is. I don't go to Baskin-Robbins. Sorry. Go binda, bayo. Speaking cryptic words in a remorseful tone of voice, the man started rubbing at Ihara's suit with his bare hands.
こら、伸ばすな。余計に汚れるじゃないか。もういい。やめろ。
Apaini. Mana to? Oh my god, that's actually Indonesian, the fuck? He's saying like, what's this? Where are you from, sir? In broken Indonesian, of course.
やめろって。どこ触ってんだよ。もういいからあっち行けよ。
This is not good. Gathering this much attention on a tailing job was a huge blunder. While warding off the man persistently trying to clean his suit, Ihara hurriedly turned his head in search of Irisu Makina, but the girl was already gone. At least he hadn't been outright discovered by the subject of his surveillance, but continuing to tail her after this would be very difficult. It'd probably be best to withdraw for the moment, then resume shadowing the girl after she finished at her part-time job.
もういいって言ってるだろ。お前、不法就労者じゃないだろうな。
The man visibly flinched at the word illegal. Finally abandoning his inept attempt at brushing off Ihara's clothing, he pulled his cap down even lower over his eyes. Joss! And with this parting remark, the man in the work uniform beat a hasty retreat.
なんなんだあいつは。
Whatever the case, things just hadn't worked out today. Ihara reached inside his jacket to switch off his IC recorder, and in the next instant, he let out another reflexive shout. The slim metal recorder that had been in his interior jacket pocket was gone. When Ihara moved his hand to the opposite pocket, the cell phone he left there was also missing. Disbelieving, he reached to the rear pocket of his pants to discover even his wallet had vanished.
やられた。
He quickly spun around, but the suspicious foreign laborer had completely disappeared.
嘘だろ。
Naoyuki Ihara fought a powerful urge to lie down on the sidewalk and curl up into a ball. Die, Makarov. Okay, Yuji, cut the act, damn it. In a narrow, dim alleyway 2 streets removed from the station plaza, a laborer was sitting on a stack of beer cases and humming the Lightspeed General Makarov theme song to himself. His attention was focused on a certain wallet, the fruit of his day's labors. There were 17,000 yen bills inside. A small purse had another 657 in coins. Not a big haul by any means, but nothing to turn up your nose at. Inside the card sleeve, there was an ATM card from a bank, credit card, patient registration ticket from a dentist, and proof of membership at a video rental shop. There was also a driver's license for standard cars, with a gold stripe. Other than that, we've got 20 convenience store coupons. Considering he's walking around with them, doesn't look like these get used too often. Methodical, but a little too much pride for his own good. The back of the dentist's ticket revealed that its owner last visited only half a year ago. The man must have been going for regular checkups to have tartars scraped off, or what have you. Definitely the methodological type. Methodical, there we go. Ihara Naoyuki-san, eh. Naturally, the back of the driver's license was unblemished by violations. It was a genuine gold license. The man snapped open a small aluminum case he'd swiped along with the wallet, finding the inside full of business cards. An IGS kid, huh? I see.
おい、そこで何をしている?
The man in the work uniform knew that voice all too well, and this wasn't the first time he'd been rendered half blind by that overly bright flashlight either. Softly clicking his tongue, he got to his feet.
おいおい、風見さんよ。またあんたか。いい加減にしてくれないか。
It's not like I did anything this time, you know.
あんた、なんだその格好。ついに学校をクビになって就職でもしたのか?
I'm a working student. This is the uniform for my part-time job.
なんか怪しいな。あんた、こんなとこで何やってたんだい?
Not much. Happened to find a wallet over there, so I was looking it over to see if I could return it to the owner.
本当に? あんたが吸ったんじゃないだろうね。
Come on, I'm being a good Samaritan here, you know? Here, this is the wallet.
中身の金は残っているようだな。あんた、少し猫ばばしていたりしないだろうな。
I'm not desperate enough to steal other people's money. I work for my food, as you can see.
そうか。いや、冗談だ。申し訳ない。
More importantly, seemed like the owner had some business cards in there.
ああ、これか。何々 ?IGS 探偵社調査員伊原直之か。
A detective, huh? Guessing from the contents of his wallet, it doesn't seem like that lucrative of a profession.
あんた、中身を見たのか?
Well, yeah, of course. That a crime now?
いや、そういうわけじゃないが。
IGS Detective Company, eh? The Iizuka General Security, private investigative agency, right? Wasn't that Iizuka Satoru guy who runs Runs it Sakura Damon Alum?
詳しいな。
The name's pretty famous, that's all. Oh, but I did hear they dabble in some behind-the-scenes political jobs as well. Any truth to that?
知らんよ。とにかくこの財布は俺が預かっておく。一緒に交番まで来てくれ。
What, again? Your boss isn't going to be too happy if you drag me back in.
そうは言ってもな。習得者の氏名と連絡先を聞くのが手順だからな。
Why not just say you're the one who found it? Even if you write my name down, Ichigai is just going to have the paper torn up. You'd only be making trouble for yourself.
しかし
Okay, here. Give me that wallet for a minute.
どうするつもりだ？
I'm going to drop it on the ground, and you're going to pick it up. That way you won't be falsifying your documents.
わかったよ。俺がここで拾ったことにすればいいんだろ。
Why not at least pretend to pick it up?
はいはい。お、こんなところに財布が落ちているじゃないか。これでいいか？
Damn, this guy's a comedian. Good job, policeman. Good job. Oh, while we're at it, take these too.
携帯電話となんだこれは？
A voice recorder. Unfortunately, somebody or other seems to have cleared the memory. It was just lying here with the wallet.
おい、本当にあんたが吸ったんじゃないだろうな。
Word of advice, don't ask any more questions. I'm willing to bet your life's going to go a lot smoother that way.
確かにな。あんたのことは黙認しろと上から言われている。けどな、風見さんよ。俺は犯罪を見て見ぬふりをするために警官になったわけじゃないぞ。
And I'm not saying you should. You have my word. I'm not looking to make you complicit in any evil doing on my part.
風見さんよ。あんた、本当に迷惑だな。
Human beings can't live without inconveniencing others. Damn you, Yuji.
まあいいさ。俺はここで財布を拾っただけだ。あんたにも会っていない。それでいいんだな。
That works. Speaking from experience, people who know when to keep their mouth shut get ahead in life faster. You climb the ladder in no time.
嬉しかねえな。
Okay, I'll be going now.
あんまり仕事増やしてくれるなよ。次は本当に逮捕するぞ。
I'll watch my step. Starving highway robbers in war-torn countries will murder people for a single can of food. Comparatively speaking, a filch wallet is hardly worth whining about, right? Not that I'm dumb enough to voice a thought. When people are raised in different environments, they'll naturally look at the exact same things in very different ways. True? But I'm not complaining. A peaceful way of life, not seeing things best left unseen, ignorant of facts best left unknown, needs to be supported from the shadows. And that's the one and only reason anyone would bother keeping trash like me around. Jeez. More depressing music? I can't believe we're ending off at this depressing music. But that is going to be it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It feels like throughout the past like 2 or 3 episodes lately, I haven't been giving too much commentary about what's going on. Like I said, it's mostly because I don't want to give out too much info about if what I'm thinking is actually really gonna be shown in the story anyway. Like, you know, what I say is going to be shown like maybe 30 minutes ahead or maybe like 3 hours ahead. I'm not sure. Like, I don't remember the exact details of this game, you know, but I do know the general of what's going to happen. But yeah, I do think I still enjoy this route though. One thing I can say though, like, what is it? Like, even though we are already in like a serious route, there are still a lot of slice of life comedy, slapstick going on, right? I think the nice thing about that is that, or at least the writing of this game seems to say that it's more about, what do you call it? I heard this this thing before. What is it? Existential dread? It's like the looming fear that something might happen to your everyday life, but you just don't know when it might happen. That's like the feeling that this game is trying to show you, or at least this route. I'm not specifically saying that the whole game is going to be telling you about that sort of feeling. But alright, I'm kind of going on a tangent. enough about that. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I'm going to make myself some... What time is it? 5 o'clock. So like early dinner. And I will see you guys after I ate
セーブしますか？
my dinner. See ya.